Hey guys, welcome back to On or Off Track with Hinch and Rossi Tuesday episode. If you remember last week, we started a chat with Jamie Chadwick. This week, we're going to finish that chat up. So make sure you listen all the way to the end. The W Series closed its doors, but shortly thereafter, FIA Academy was announced, which is, I mean, maybe you can educate me a bit on this. There doesn't seem to be a lot of difference. Like, why did one fail and the other has, taken off and succeeding? What is it? Was it more of a political thing? Like the FIA wanted to control something? I don't actually know the backstory. I just saw one stopped and very shortly after the other started. It's like, well, how is one going to help me understand FIA Academy a little bit?
Actually, it wasn't quite as blank that. The F1 Academy started whilst W Series still existed.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't realize that.
There was going to be two if W Series continued, which I definitely didn't think there was maybe space for. I think what W Series was and what F1 Academy is, and I think what F1 Academy is going to become is ideally what it should be, is an F4 championship, really targeting young talent coming out of karting, sort of 16-year-olds at a max. I think we had this crossover period in W Series where there's older girls, older women competing, same in F1 Academy. So I think what F1 Academy is targeting the younger ones in F4. So then they have the opportunity to go to either F4 or a regional championship, ultimately F3 after that. The big difference is obviously it's F1 owned now, so it's got a lot of support from Formula One, but also the Formula One teams are backing young drivers. So I actually work with Williams supporting Leah Block with their entry, but all the teams have a driver that they look after, which I think is cool. I think it's great that, the F1 teams are now really having to get behind women in the sport. And it's funny seeing, their approach change. They're now competitive. They want to win. So they're desperately trying to find the best female drivers now out there. And I think that is how we're going to fast track, seeing more women get to the top.
Yeah, no, it's great. The races that I've been to that FIA Academy's been there, it's an incredible production. They obviously are putting a lot of effort into it. It was great to see. It's awesome to see you involved with your role with Williams as your development driver for them and helping out with their driver in FIA Academy. Fun little side gig for you on F1 weekends. Do a little bit of TV work, a little bit of coaching. Not a bad program, right?
It's cool that I enjoy. That's like where the fan in me enjoys it almost. I don't know how you find it, but when you see like the Formula One events now and how it's taken off in the last few years, especially more races being in America. I enjoy it. I think it's just cool to be a part of that kind of, I don't want to call it a circus, but that kind of world in whatever role that is.
It is.
I think the purist in me loves that. I love the racing in IndyCar. I love the environment of IndyCar. I love, everything that I've sort of experienced over the last 2 years now. But yeah, like I say, it is fun being able to dip my toe into the Formula One world as well.
All right. So let's get there then. Let's talk about that transition over to the US. Where, when, and how did communication from Michael Andretti come to you saying, hey, we want you to come over and test an IndyNXT car?
So actually, it was a sort of a bit of a stars aligning moment. So we had been talking to DHL for a long time prior to any of this happening on a separate sort of negotiation to do some sort of ambassadorial work. At the same time, there was some interest with Honda and IndyCar and Andretti for me to come over to test. The initial conversation was actually around IndyCar, and we said that's way too big of a step. I think that's also where I think there's a bit of miseducation around what W Series was and the relative level of it,
right? Especially
in Europe. So we looked to discuss an IndyNXT test or Indy Lights at the time. I obviously jumped at the opportunity. And in the short space of time between doing that test or looking at doing the test, and then ultimately going away, there'd been conversations between DHL and Andretti, and next thing I know, we're sort of set for the season. So it really was, like I say, a bit of a stars aligning moment. I really enjoyed the test. I think it was at Sebring, but it was a much faster car, anything that I'd driven before. So I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to come over and drive these cars. This looks fun. And I was just lucky that like I said, the stars aligned and the opportunity came about.
Had you paid much attention to IndyCar and kind of racing over here up to that point?
Yeah, loads. I I'd always watch sort of mainly like the staple races. I'd always watch the 500 and things. But I went to the Indy 500 in 2019. And ever since then, that was like, this is so cool. So I'd followed it. I'd watched it. Not with any view of actually coming over here. Not for any reason, but I say I just was born, raised in Europe. I never thought necessarily I would come over here from a career perspective. But like I said, as soon as the opportunity came about, that was it. I jumped at it. So
your first test was at Sebring. Sorry about that. You get the deal done. What about your first oval test? I'm always curious talking to drivers that, just European drivers. A lot of North American drivers don't get on an oval until that level. And it's always interesting to see kind of the reaction the first time you go. First of all, where was it and what was it like for you?
Well, my first oval test was at IRP. So Indianapolis, in an Indy Pro car, because I sort of psyched myself out of it. I thought, because in IndyNXT we do the short ovals. Now we do a slightly bigger oval with Nashville, but we do the short ovals. Last year, it was a bit of a disaster with tyres, testing. We didn't get a huge amount of running on the oval, so I never really got my teeth into it last year. But like I said, I was expecting this like insane sort of euphoric speed feeling, something that I never experienced before. So I was like, right, I need to drive an oval before I go to my first test. So we drove at IRP. I actually crashed at IRP, not badly. But the thing when you try and downshift just locks the rears, which wasn't the best feeling in the world. But it gave me a feel for the oval. We took Bob Perona there, and I got an idea for what it felt like. At that point, I was like, cool, this is fun. But when you're driving on your own on a short oval, it's one feeling. It can get
boring quickly, yeah.
Yeah, the racing is something else. Like, so the testing everything, I was like, cool, this is one thing. When you go into turn one for the first time on an oval, and I was nearer the back last year, and you got all those cars in front of you, like that is another feeling, I thought. And that's a bit that I feel like I'm only just starting to get used to. But it's so fun. I really enjoy it now. Like I said, we've got a lot more ovals to get our teeth into this year, which is nice. Last year, we didn't really have a huge amount. Now we have 4 ovals, quite a bit of testing. So it's good fun.
So that first season, admittedly had some struggles. You're learning a new car, all new tracks, a completely different style of racing. I think that you were very...
Driving on the other side of the road.
It's terrible, yeah.
I think that you were always very honest about the physicality of it, and how that was maybe a bigger step than anticipated and whatever. And I always really respected that. Drivers always we like making excuses, right? It's always something else. There's always, you were like, no, this is harder than I thought it was from a physicality standpoint. I'm working on that. And so you kind of get through that first year, you know what to expect now coming into year 2. What was the biggest kind of area of preparation that you focused on heading into that second season?
Exactly. I'd say getting stronger, to be honest. But also just knowing what was coming. You know what to focus on. You know the areas that you need to focus on. It just felt like last year went so quick. And confidence is so much as well. Like I turned up to the first race and I wasn't even a million miles away, but I qualified towards the back. And then I had a really tough race, and I was just like, wow, this is going to be tough. And then your head's down, and then trying to pick yourself up throughout the year is kind of done before you really have the chance. So I knew we needed to focus on getting stronger, having a really good sort of off season and preparation testing wise, get the confidence back up, and then come into this year, feeling just stronger in every sense. And I think we did a really good job of that. I've always had a really good car. I've always had a good team, obviously, with Andretti. So sadly, no excuses there. It's just about maximizing that. And I feel like coming into this year, that's all I wanted to focus on.
And if you look at the results from this year, it's worked. But the paper answer is one thing. I mean, do you feel it in the car? Did you show up at St. Pete and immediately feel more at ease, more comfortable, more confident, and just kind of ready to go racing?
Massively. But it's funny because I don't know, actually, it'd be interesting to know if you felt like this. I've always sort of, you put yourself as a driver in a category, or you give yourself like a position that you kind of end up thinking that you're within. So I went into this year being like, okay, I want to be in the top 10. And then kind of comfortably in the top 10. And then I'm like, okay, I want to be in the top 5. And then you suddenly start kind of giving yourself different targets. And I know some drivers say, oh no, I don't think like that. I just want to win every race. That's kind of how I approached this year. And like I say, I went into St. Pete being like, okay, I want to be in the top 10. And really our pace was top 5. And so then suddenly I'm like, okay, now top 5. And ultimately down the line, it's kind of gone up and up, which is, I think, been a nice feeling to have. And yeah, I think just knowing, cool, I can get through a race distance, I can get through an hour race comfortably without struggling physically. I can make the most of this. I can push in qualifying, all this stuff. Definitely has all added up.
So as those targets increase, top 10, cool, check. Top 5, cool, check. Podium, cool, check. Pole on a race win. First woman in Indy Lights history to do it on a road course. Does that now, congratulations, does that now reclock that expectation of you? Are you now like, okay, I can do this. I have done this. And in pretty decisive fashion too. It wasn't, and this is one thing I think some drivers are really good at and some drivers are really bad at. It's delineating the result from like the effort. Right?
Yeah.
There are races I won. I had no business winning. And I didn't I'm not getting out of the car like, yay, celebrate me. I'm so great. It's like, nah, that one was kind of bullshit. And even I know that. But I'll take the win. Don't get me wrong. But that was a earned as earned can be race victory at a very difficult track.
Before we get to that, I just want to reiterate, that's every one of James's win. He is not a good driver.
No, not once. Not once. My entire career has been a fluke. Yeah. It's remarkable.
Well, there was that one time you bribed everybody.
Yeah, the problem was I didn't actually pay. I didn't have any. I lied about that. Even that was a lie.
Yeah,
the whole thing's been a sham.
You're still getting ransom calls.
I just want to make sure we didn't go over the fact that James is a shit driver.
No, I appreciate it. I've always wanted to be as good a driver as you are a writer, Tim. So, so back to the original question. Does that now change your outlook to every subsequent race? Does it go from, a top 5 is a good result today to, no, we're going to fight for the win?
Yeah, it's funny actually. At the beginning of this year, so my engineer, Andy, Bob Perona, our driver coach, and I sat down and we're like, what are the goals for this year? And we actually sort of went, let's not even think about any championship position, anything like that. Let's just try and win a race. Go all in every race, go for that overtake that might feel a little bit risky, go for every kind of, every result we can. And I was like, okay, cool. Kind of nodding along, thinking okay, that's going to be my sort of mental approach, but genuinely not really believing I could actually win a race. And I think, like I say, my targets changed. And Bob actually said to me, I think it was after Detroit maybe, he said, do you know what's going to happen? You're going to win your first race. It's going to be really underwhelming because you're going to be fighting for third. The leaders are going to take each other out maybe. And you're going to come through and you're going to be like, that's my first win. That feels terrible. And in my head, I was like,
bite me, Bob.
Yeah, no. And in my head, I was like, no, that's not how I want to win my first race. I want to win my first race. And so, Road America is one of those. You say, it was a proper win. I was really happy with how that weekend went, but the stars did align. And I think you need to make the most of those opportunities. I had a really good drawing with the qualifying groups. I knew I had to deliver in qualifying, which we did. And then, you're on pole. You can't not make the most of that opportunity, especially in IndyNXT. It's chaos at the best of times. So I knew I just had to make the most of the opportunity, and I think we did a good job of that. But it's frustrating now because yes, there was that win, but actually now I look at the championship and I think we could have been really high up in the championship if we had a cleaner year. So it's kind of two thoughts on it really from this season.
Yeah, and that's racing in general, right? I mean, we're coming off a Gateway, awesome job in qualifying, start in the front row, just literally driven into in a straight line at the start of the race. I mean, it's got to be so frustrating. But no, I think you're right. I think those the pace and the championship position don't necessarily line up. But that's got to give you confidence.
Because Gateway was such a clean race in IndyCar.
I think that is part of our problem in IndyNXT is it's like in IndyCar you have 3 hours to kind of work it out, whereas we only have less than an hour. So it just ends up being double down on
more
stuff
frantic.
like that, which is frustrating.
And it's also a much wider, well, not much wider, but in that series there is a wide range of experience,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've won championships at a national, like international level, and you could be racing against a 16-year-old kid in his third year in cars, right? So
Yeah.
like it is a big mixed bag in that championship, which makes it tough. But obviously, you're doing the right thing. You're trending in the right direction. And that has now led to the opportunity to test an IndyCar for the first time coming up here in a little bit.
Yeah, super excited about that. Yeah, one of those things I think you kind of strive for, you hope for. But yeah, very, very happy, especially to do it with Andretti, with a proper team, big team. I think it's going to be, definitely an experience, but useful as well. I have a goal of going to IndyCar. I need to know what it's going to be like, realistically at that level. And like you say, the car's a step up, but as you mentioned, you've got experience level of drivers through the roof. The grid is stacked now. So yeah, it's going to be a good experience to learn what it takes.
So that's when, do we know exactly when that's happening?
Yeah, it's on the 30th of September at Barber.
Okay. Now was you and I kind of joked about this a little bit. Was Barber your choice, or was this just kind of, were you given options, or was this like, hey, we're doing a test, this is where we're going to put you? Like, beggars can't be choosers, right? You're not going to say no. But was that where you wanted to test for the first time?
It was my choice. If I could make the choice again, would I say Barber? Maybe not. I said it, and it was genuinely came from a place of actually really wanting to test somewhere like Barber. Because as we said, I tested Sebring in the IndyNXT car, which it's like a 50-second lap time, all quite low speed. I got up to speed quite quickly. I felt like I impressed on the test, and for that reason, obviously secured the seat, and then went into my first race. I actually went to Barber, and I was like, this is so different to what I experienced at
felt
that
like
test.
underprepared, basically.
Exactly. So obviously, it's not as simple as this, but if I did go to Sebring, I feel like I could have done a job that I would have been happy with, wouldn't have given me a full picture of what the IndyCar was like to drive. And as a result, I think probably skewed my perception of it. So really, I feel like Barber's probably the toughest place. One of them. I'm going to put the neck pad in.
Yeah. 100%.
And like I say, if I go to Barber and I can't turn the wheel and, the test is a disaster, at least I know that if that's what I've got.
It's a great point.
I feel like I've got a good perception of knowing what I'm capable of. Even in IndyNXT last year, I struggled through the year, but I know I can get to that level. I just need to do this and I can get there. So I think it's just going to be a really good evaluation for me. And the best case scenario is keep nailing my training. I feel good, and we can get the most out of it, and push for an IndyCar seat.
I absolutely love that mentality. I mean, most drivers would be like, no, let's go to the easiest track where I've got the best chance of having a competitive lap time and fool everybody. But you don't want to fool yourself. And so you're going to one of the, if not the hardest places to drive an IndyCar fast. And I respect the hell out of that. That's very cool. Look, I remember my first laps in an IndyCar. It's a very special moment. It's a very special day. I'm so excited for you to get to experience that coming up here in a little bit, but still have a little bit left in the IndyNXT Championship to get through. So we want to wish you all the best in the remaining races. Less, contact from people in straight lines like we had last weekend in Gateway, and more Road America-esque performances. I think everybody knows and believes you can do it. So Jamie, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. Best of luck with the rest of the season and for the future. Hopefully we'll see you on the IndyCar grid soon.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.